Good evening. We're going to call the meeting to order. This is the Monday, June 17th, 2024 regular meeting of the Marion City School Board. Before we get started, I am going to give the floor to Board Member Swanger for a couple announcements, unfortunately, of a couple of individuals that passed away.
Thank you, Mr. Aliff. So we have had since our last board meeting, two Marion City employees that we know of that have passed away. The first one was Marion Allen. She was only 53 years old. She lost a battle to pancreatic and liver cancer. She was a graduate of Bishop Hartley High School, Walsh College, and she was a longtime elementary teacher for us. And she dealt with special needs students. And I just remember anytime there was any special ed meetings, I always remember seeing Marion Allen there. And she had a passion for working with students with special needs and did a phenomenal job. She most recently had been working with Columbus City Schools, but again, unfortunately, lost way too soon to pancreatic cancer. Our second former employee was Sue Rudy. She was an elementary teacher. Some of you may know her husband, Bill Rudy, who was also a guidance counselor at Harding High School for years. Sue Rudy unexpectedly passed away last week. She worked 26 years for Marion City Schools, most of it at Pearl Street, Glenwood, and George Washington Elementary. Loved working with the elementary kids. Most recently was spending time between Columbus, Ohio, where she was closer to her granddaughters, and in Florida. Loved going to Florida, loved crafting, painting, and was an avid traveler and loved going boating. But again, both of those people, and Sue was 80 years old, so she lived a much longer life, but two unexpected deaths. So we will take a moment of silence for both of them after we do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yep. So we can all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance, remain standing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Treasurer, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Ratliff?
Here.
Mr. Weibling?
Here.
Mrs. Dyer?
Here.
Ms. Swanger?
Present.
Mr. Guyer?
Here.
Item 3A on the agenda, student achievements. Is that under you, Madam Superintendent?
To President Ratliff and to all the members of Marion City School Board, good evening. This student is not present today, but I still wanted to publicly acknowledge his accomplishment. Christian Pearson, who's a current 11th grader, he's an incoming senior for next year, has been selected to serve on the Ohio Student Safety Advisory Council. This is a very competitive group. You have to apply to be accepted, and we are just extremely excited that we will have a student from Marion City Schools representing on our state safety council. So I just wanted to give him an acknowledgement. And we will certainly get him a certificate once summer is over.
Yeah, and Kristen was also recognized last year for his legislative prowess, and so it looks like this young man seems to be headed for some type of position. And yeah, so we better watch out for him.
Item 3B, end of the year teaching and learning update. Madam Superintendent.
I would first like to ask Mr. Donnie Strong to come up to give a little announcement before my report. We want our listeners out there in the community to know what is happening with our summer food program.
That was not the announcement.
Good evening. Summer foods, it's starting. We are our third week in. We have actually already exceeded our weekly participation. We had set numbers that we've kind of gone over, and we hit those and beyond on the first week. So going forward, we are already set to go probably way past where we have been in the past. So people are showing up, the communities, you know, getting what they need, and we're doing what we need to do. It is the second summer that we've been able to do the new model that ODE is allowed, where we do the bag pickups. It is every Thursday from 12 to 1:30. We have 5 schools that we're doing it at: Grant, GW, Taft, Hayes, and McKinley. The lines get kind of long, so if you are headed out there, kind of be patient. We are doing our best to get it out there as fast as we can. But we have staff who are dedicated, who are here working over the summer. Most of them are cooks. They're giving up their summer to come in and continue to feed the kids. So they are, you know, going strong and putting out those meals, but it does take a little bit of extra time. We'll be doing this until August 1st. We are closed July 4th week, just because of the fair, and our participation is usually very low. Most people are at the fairgrounds that week. So any other Thursday, all of those sites, and we are excited to have people come out. You guys have any questions or anything about it?
Did you list the sites or tell us the sites?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
of them.
it's George Washington, Grant,
Yep.
Taft, Hayes, and McKinley.
And they can find that information where?
Social media on our website.
Correct.
That's what it says.
Just about anybody who works for us knows about it, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And Mr. Strong, I just want to commend you and your team, because it really is, I don't know how you guys do it. It is a system that you guys put together, and it's really a needed resource for our families here in Marion. So, and if any of the board members haven't seen the setup of how they get all the meals together and bag it up, I'm sure you guys would welcome them over to see what's happening over
Oh
the
yeah,
summer.
anytime anyone wants to come visit or even pass out, please let me know and I'll get that set up. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll just move over to my report, and I'll go ahead and start talking as Jolene's pulling up our PowerPoint. So as you know, at the end of the year, we always share our data and where we are. Mr. Renzi's not here, so I'll be delivering just the high-level data for him. He coached me very well on Friday when we were together. But just as a refresher, we had goals this year. Obviously, we had a goal to increase in our ELA, our English Language Arts, increase in our math. We also wanted to focus on decreasing the number of days that kids didn't have access to instruction. And instead of just saying, oh, we're going to look at the number of days kids are out of school suspended, we wanted to look at it in a different way and see how many days are kids actually missing instruction when we're, putting them out of school. And then the last one was we focused on the whole educator. We were focusing on the healthy tenant, just recognizing the importance of health for our students, but also for our staff. So again, I'm going to give a high-level overview. This data is on the board agenda, so it's out for the public if any of you want to pull it and go a little bit deeper. But our end-of-the-year elementary school reading data, you'll see here, anything that's early on or mid or above is considered on grade level. So this is where we ended for the end of the year. But really, that middle chart is the one that we pay attention to. So when we say BOY green, that's beginning of the year, middle of the year green, and end of the year green. And green means they have tested on grade level on iReady. So you'll see our kindergarten students started at 16% and they ended at a 70%. Our first grade students started at 11%, ended at 41%. Our second grade students started the year at 15% in green and ended at 43%. And our third grade was at 22% and ended at 56%. And you'll see there the rest. So what this means is we know that our students are coming in well below where they need to be. But this shows that our teachers and our CKLA program that we're using at the elementary level is helping us. Now, we still have some ways to go, but at least we're not still sitting at those 16 and 11%. You see that the students are actually growing in their reading. At the bottom chart, I'm not really going to go into depth on that, but we looked at the typical growth. So every student is expected to grow a year, no matter where they start. If they're in first grade and they're at a kindergarten level, we expect them to grow a year. They're still going to be behind if they only grow a year. So we also give kids a stretch goal. That stretch goal is their year's growth plus where we want them to be on grade level. So that just shows how our students scored there. Our middle school data is not as promising as what we saw with our elementary. I'll speak to this a little bit later, but what this means is we'll have to dig a little bit deeper next year and really, I think, focus on middle school and try to figure out what's happening here. Really try to figure out what those root causes are. Moving on to high school reading data. As you know, we typically use the end of course exams when we see how our students are doing. We have the NWA map that we use. It really just assesses where students are. And our students, I would just say probably the most important one is the top. That shows where our students scored compared to the normative group, the national normative group. So this is a nationwide test. Kids all over the nation take it. So we're able to get data that shows where our students scored. So that 41% in ninth grade means that our students did better than 41% of the students in the country that took this test. And then you'll see the growth there at the bottom. Again, you typically will see less growth as students get older because there's less levels for them to move. But again, this would be an area that we still need to focus and continue to work on. When we look at our end of the year elementary school math data, also very promising. I would say that probably some of this has to do with our renewed focus on math and adding in the math coaches to really work with our teachers to help them dive into curriculum, help them become better believers in themselves of teachers of math. So again, you can see in kindergarten, our kids came in only at a 9% on green and ended at a 55%, which again, you see that across the board. It's still not at the proficiency rate that we want to be at, but at least we're one step closer. We haven't remained stagnant there. Moving on to middle school math data, again, this is not where we want to be, but we did show some growth from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. But again, our team is aware that we need to really dig a little deeper and to see what's happening at the middle school level as to why we're not seeing the growth there in the green that we expect to see. We do have a large percent, you'll see there, the median typical growth down there for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade is pretty high. So again, we have some things that we're doing well, so we just need to figure out what those best practices are and see how we share that with other teachers at the middle school level. The high school math data, I think you all are aware, we use ALEX. This is the percent of skills mastered. Again, it's not where I would want it to be, but we have shown some growth in this area from the beginning of the year to middle of the year. We, again, use our end of course exams at the high school level to determine our students' proficiency, but this is just like an interim assessment that we can use to kind of see where our kids are at the high school level. Discipline is also something that we tracked this year. This is the number of in-school suspensions that we had. We do not have in-school suspension at the elementary level. That's why it's not there. But you do see that there are a large number of in-school suspensions at the middle school level. Moving on to out of school, you'll see the data there, the number of out of school suspensions that we have for this year for every grade level. Next, you'll see emergency removals. Emergency removals are typically where something egregious happens at school and a student has to be sent home during that day. We typically will try to keep students during the day if we can, or we have to have a hearing with parents, but there are incidents that happen where we have to emergency remove that student for the day. We don't do a lot of those. This is district-wide data. They're very the state is very strict about emergency removals, so that is the data there. Expulsions, you'll see the number of expulsions. At the middle school level, we have it asterisk because it is less than 5 students, just so that those students are not identified. The main one for discipline that I would like to bring your attention to is what we focused on this year. Not just out-of-school suspensions, in-school suspensions, but looking at every time a kid is put out of class, they're missing instruction. So in Marion City, we had 4,279 days last year that were out of instruction. And you'll see there that the highest number is at the middle school. So again, achievement and discipline, sometimes we have to look at multiple data points. And again, I can't say that this is the reason, but I would encourage the team next year to really delve deep and say, if we're putting a kid in school suspension, if we're putting a kid in out-of-school suspension, how are they getting the instruction that they missed? And then you look at some kids who get in-school suspension multiple days a week or multiple days in a month. So all of those, and when you get to the middle and high school level, that means they're not just missing one class, they're missing 6, 7, 8 classes. So we could be kind of getting in our own way. So again, you see the data there, but I would definitely want to look a little bit deeper there. And I will say the total number of days last year that we lost to instruction was about 5,300. So we are down about 1,000 days. So again, if we focus on it and we say, is it really necessary? Are there other options? Then hopefully we will lessen the time that kids don't have access to instruction. Our attendance data is there. We actually have our preliminary rates already in our secure portal with the state. So you'll see attendance has increased. Attendance rates is basically the percentage of when kids actually come to school. We often sometimes talk about the chronic absenteeism rate. Chronic absenteeism is when a student misses 10% or more, and it counts everything, if they're excused, unexcused. So it's really a different number. As you know, last year we decreased that number by 12%, so we're hoping we will continue to decrease that chronic absenteeism number, but this is our average daily attendance rate for each of our schools. And with that being said, I know that I've had conversations with you all about, well, what are we doing with the data? Because we often come and we say, okay, here's the data, here's the chart, this is how the kids scored. But you don't really get to see the work that's happening behind the scenes with what we're doing with the data. So we thought to end the year, we would just circle back and we used the 5-step Ohio improvement process. As you may or may not know, Marion City Schools have moved away from using the framework that the state has for all of us to use around school improvement. So this year we made a concerted effort to get back on track with the 5-step Ohio improvement process. So that's the district leadership team, and then followed by the building leadership team and those teacher-based teams. We still have some additional work to continue to support those teacher-based teams as we move forward, but we do have a solid foundation going right now with our DLT and BLT structure, because we did revert back to follow the Ohio 5-step improvement process. So there's going to be a couple members from teaching and learning that are going to come up and just kind of talk through so that the board understands what we do with these numbers, or what we have been doing with these numbers, because you don't make improvements with just looking at numbers. I think you all know that, but we recognize that we're in the work and we're doing the work, and maybe we haven't really explained it fully to you all about connecting the two and what those two look like. So if you guys could come up and do your slides. Dr. McMasters and Jen Wellman. Dr. McMasters is our Director of Teaching and Learning, and Jen Williams is our Curriculum Director.
And I think Greg would be proud of how you presented the data, so thank you. Jody, if you want to switch to the next slide. I just want to introduce our team, and this is our core teaching and learning team. You'll see that it consists of a wide variety of roles and responsibilities. These are the individuals who come together on a weekly basis to review information for the district, to find ways to support that district leadership team, plan for that district leadership team, and then support buildings with the Ohio improvement process. So Olympia talked a little bit about this, but it really is about two-way communication between district leadership, building leadership, and our teacher-based teams. So the teaching and learning department plan and implement that DLT process. We meet on a monthly basis. It consists of district administration ESPs might be on that team, teachers from every building, teacher leaders from each building, sit on that team, come together with district leadership to work through the concerns that we have with our data. What are we doing? How are we selecting strategies? And our focus is how can we best support those buildings and our building leaders so that they can then support teachers who in turn can focus on students. So we're going to give you some information, a little bit of information about each step of the Ohio improvement process and what that looks like from the district level and how it filters down to the buildings. So step one in the Ohio improvement process is identifying our critical needs. This is just a sample of data that we collect, which includes behavior data, academic data that includes not just OST data or MAP data that you just looked at, but also includes teachers' progress monitoring data for their students, for individual students and groups of students and their goals. We look at graduation data, our career pathway data, and then all data that's required for our grant applications, monitoring, and compliance. And that information is all required that we disaggregate that data based on several different factors. So it might be students with disabilities, students in general education, students by race, students by female and male. So there's a wide variety of disaggregated data that we look at when we start to talk about what are we going to do about it. So under that, identifying critical needs from the district standpoint, we are required every 3 years to create a district, what they call one plan through the state of Ohio. That requires a district one needs assessment. There are 8 areas in the one needs assessment, and there are about 30 questions in each area that all revolve around data. So it will ask us to look at our EL population, to look at our gifted students, in all of those disaggregated areas to then identify what are our priority needs and what we are going to develop as goals. We are in the planning process right now for our next cycle. So the first one was done in 2021. It went through this past school year. We are starting for fiscal year 25 right now to have our plan in place for the 24-25 school year. So through that process, each building completes a needs assessment also. They have required questions from the state. So they may not answer every question, but there will be questions about their math data. There will be questions about their ELA data. They will be asked to identify root causes in their building. So they work with that building leadership team to identify what are the root causes for the data that we're seeing. And then they work with their TBTs to align instruction with building goals based on student need. So if you go to that, this is just an example of what that needs assessment looks like at the district level. So like I said, there are 8 areas, 30 questions across. You'll see the directions on there say, analyze the results of disaggregated data from the sources that we have, and they'll give you some options. It doesn't say you're limited to those, but it talks about state testing, ELA, math, kindergarten readiness assessments, all of those things that we are required to evaluate and analyze so that we can develop goals for the district. Once our one plan is finalized with the state, so right now our consultants with the state are reviewing our plan. Once that's finalized, each building will then create their one plan from what we have developed from the district. Our focus areas right now are ELA, math, and attendance. Incorporated into those are things like student behavior and positive behavior supports in the buildings and family and parent engagement or family and community engagement. So those will be embedded into our 3 goals, but they are not going to be separate goals as of right now.
Dr. McMaster has touched on some of these already. Some of our system strategies, the higher level of things like coaching and family engagement, tier 1 instruction, and those BLTs and TBTs.
So really those system strategies are things that you will hear a lot. If you ask a building, what are the strategies that you're using to support attendance? What are the strategies that you're using to support math instruction? And they may say, we're using math coaches to go in and coach our teacher. That is a system strategy. What we spent time on this year through DLT was to work with our district leadership team to thoroughly understand what are evidence-based instructional strategies. So instead of just looking at system strategies, PBIS, your multi-tiered systems of support, your attendance strategies. We wanted to get down to that teacher-based team level to say, what is an instructional strategy? Those are the things that teachers are doing on a regular basis. Are we being intentional about the decisions that we're making about instruction for kids? And what we found was many of our teachers are already doing great evidence-based strategies. So we worked through a process where we asked teams in DLT to actually look at what's the problem you're trying to solve. So if you have a problem like addition of multi-digit numbers with carrying, and you say that the majority of your students just aren't getting it. So you might have a group that's already mastered it, you have a group that's not getting it, and then you have kids who aren't even able to add single-digit numbers. So you look at those three groups and you say, what am I going to do about that? What's the instructional strategy that I'm going to use? So you might be using base 10 blocks for your middle group and say, we're going to use visuals and manipulatives. What are we going to do for our extended group? We might be working on extended projects that involve larger numbers. For our base group, what are we doing for them? You might be doing visuals. You might be doing partner work. So they're being very intentional about what are those evidence-based strategies that they're using in the classroom to address those different levels of students that they're faced with on a daily basis. One of the resources we used was Hattie's Visible Learning. So this consists of a meta-analysis of all the research on multiple instructional strategies. And what's nice about this is we had a one-page chart that says, here are some low-level instructional strategies, here's some challenging instructional strategies. And teachers were like, oh, I do that already. Now can I be intentional about doing it more or differently? Then they're able to also search for other strategies they didn't think about. So you can go to the website, you can type in, this is what I'm having trouble with. It will take you to a list of instructional strategies that are appropriate for age level, grade level, your student population. So that is a process that continues, that we continue to work on. I don't know if you had anything about.
What's been nice this year, our teachers have been able to share these strategies at our DLT, as Dr. McMaster's mentioned, and they're able to then have common conversations across buildings, across grade levels, because they're consistent with what strategy they're looking at. Much of this will then drive, our curriculum selection, our professional development opportunities that we provide to our staff, whether internal or external. A lot of the course requests as well will stem from this data and what our teachers are using it for. Specifically this year, as we adopted curriculum that you approved for us, it's driven from the data, it's driven from the needs that we address and how we can fit that into the strategies that we'd like to continue to try to use and develop further. Other things we're looking at based on the data would include staffing, which includes our LID support, EL support, coaching, and those folks help provide professional learning as well for our staff, just to support them through trying these instructional strategies.
Yeah, you can go to the next one, Jolene. So when we develop our one plan as a district, each strategy that we list has to be linked to a funding source. So again, how are we using data? We're using the data to develop our goals and select our strategies, and now we're saying how we're going to fund those. So this is just an example from our attendance goal that we want to implement some software that gives early warnings to the buildings so that they don't have to go look for it every day, but the principal or the ESP is going to get an alert that says, here's your students that are close to reaching the chronic absenteeism rate. So they're going to get that alert on a regular basis. So if we purchase that software, we can pay for it out of our Title 5B funds. So that's an example of how we're tying funding back to the things that we need that are tied to our data. If we're going to do training for staff and also make connections with additional community resources, we can do that through our Title 2A, which is supporting effective instruction. So again, each strategy for each goal has to be linked back to a funding source. Some of it will be general fund. If it is staff that we already have on board, if it is staff we are paying out of McKinney-Vento funds, they would be linked to those funding sources. So just another example of how we have to continuously tie that back to how we're supporting the initiatives. And then this is an example. Step 4 in the OIP process is implement and monitor. So you have teachers who have selected evidence-based instructional strategies. They take those back to their classrooms, they work on them, they monitor, they collect the data. They bring that data back to their building leadership team and share it. So this is an example that came right from a BLT agenda where teachers went in and said, what step are we on in the OIP process? So at that time, kindergarten was still identifying whatever their critical need was. They were implementing a strategy of direct instruction. I don't know what the skill was, but they were doing I do, we do, you do as their strategy. Because they were in step 1, they were still in the development process. So they may have already been through 5 cycles of the OIP and they were starting over. So this was in February. So they're starting a new strategy with a group of students. First grade, they were in step 5 of the OIP process, examining, reflecting, and adjusting based on their instruction. So the strategy they were using was showing work to prove the thinking process. And they listed, here's our reflection for right now. What worked? In class 1, 90% of the scores on the 90% plus on the scores on the post-assessment. And then what didn't work, there was a discrepancy in kids in the second classroom. So it made it more challenging for kids. The data's not there, but they had the data that they brought and talked to their TBT and then to BLT. Third grade was on step 4. We're using base 10 blocks and proof drawings for adding and subtracting. Teacher said our reflection right now as we're implementing is that addition is going well. Kids are picking up on it. They had some data to support that. Kids were still having trouble with subtraction. So what do? They talk to their TBT. I need help with this. My kids are struggling. What are we going to do differently about it? That can go to BLT and they can get suggestions from other teachers. So that's just one example from one building of what this data collection process looks like. And then the BLT would report back to DLT. They have 7, 8, however many TBT groups that they have, who would then say, our kindergarten team is on step 1, they've done 5 cycles. First grade is on step 5, they've completed 1 cycle. So that we knew from a DLT, where do we have to do some interventions? Where do we need to work with our building principals and our building leadership teams to make sure that teachers have what they need to continue to move through the cycles? That information then, and this is just an example, there is a document called the School Improvement Tool that we are required to use, particularly for our comprehensive school improvement schools, our targeted school improvement tools, or any schools that are additional targeted. So we have this year, right now, we have Taft, which is a comprehensive school improvement, and a focus school, which is McKinley. And this is what we are required to do for that. I just wanted to see how this data links back to this. Is that we, because we get Title I funds and expanding opportunity funds, there is a set aside amount that is for those individual buildings. So there is additional funding that we say, let's go back to Taft, look at our data. Let's go to McKinley, look at our data. Let's talk about what are we going to implement in that building. So an example from Taft this year is we provided some additional coaching for the administrator through PBIS and for just some reviewing data and academic support so that they were able to then support their teachers. That's just an example. Jolene, if you want to look at the next. And then this is just an example again of, okay, you have these goals. You're required to be monitoring them. You have to link it to funding. And then you're required to upload the data. So for each goal, we have student measures and adult measures. So we are required then to say, did we collect the data? What does the data say? And then if we don't have the data, you better be able to justify why you don't have it. So for each of those goals, we'll be required to do that for this upcoming school year.
The last thing we'd like to share, just as an example, and you have access to this, is our end of the year reflections from our buildings for their BLTs. They have some celebrations. They also have what opportunities and areas of growth they might look for, and also next steps. So there's some really great examples.
Jolene, are you able to
You
open
can
that
click
link?
on that. There you go.
Maybe, oh, yeah. It's a little small, but.
So on page 2, for example, McKinley is celebrating that their math and reading are trending up in 3rd and 4th grade, and that their 4th grade is making some major improvements this year. and that they're much more consistent with their implementation of some of the new curriculums. They'd like to look at writing performance up and coming and be more intentional with their data and their analysis, which we again can support that through the Ohio improvement process. They've got a really good plan for their RTFI, which is planning and goal setting. And they're looking at, again, the data analysis and then their BLT, meeting and reviewing this data, specifically attendance data, iReady data, and their Savers data.
And that RTFI is the Reading Tiered Fidelity Inventory.
And then, again, they're hoping to look at a common writing rubric within their building to, again, provide comparison of what strategies are working across grade levels and teams. And they already have this in place. So every building was able to reflect on this year already and have some ideas going into next year for their teams, which will then be supported through their one plans as well.
That concludes our report. So I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Yeah, just a few. So the one plan, the needs assessment, because I assume we just got this data that we got tonight is very recent, correct? Was that data able to be used when we put together the most recent plan?
No, we used last year's data.
Okay.
And then we'll have the opportunity to update it. So we can update our one plan at any time. Like if we have data that says, oh my gosh, you're doing amazing in math, like fix this and adjust our goal based on that.
Okay, and can we as a board get I'd looked for them in last year's end of the year meetings, but didn't see the same data. So can we get that just so we can do a comparison as well?
This data?
Yes,
We
from
have-
last year?
We had the same data last year.
Okay, and that's why so maybe I just couldn't find it.
Yeah,
but-
we can
okay,
send it.
gotcha.
I can put it
Yeah,
in
that would
update
be
for you.
Great. And then you said that the next step, or one of the next coming steps, will be identify root causes. The numbers do show in terms of the growth, okay? And that's, it'd be hard to refute any of that. And then it's trying to get over that hump after the fact. So with the root causes, would we be able to, as a board, be presented those findings by August, by September, or when do you think that'll be done?
As soon as we get our one plan back from the state,
Okay.
those are included in there so we can share that with you.
Gotcha, that would be great. And then lastly, with what you mentioned with the end of the year reflections, and you said this was a much more concerted effort focused on OIP than maybe we've had in the past. Did we have those end of the year reflections last year? Is that something that is
No,
came about
I
as
mean,
a
I don't-
result? Okay, gotcha, that's,
Yeah.
all right, I liked to hear
Yeah.
that, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Do we know why we went away from the OIP process? Because I know we did it for a long time.
I can't answer that question. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, I think, when I came in, I think it was more just like central office was doing the plan and pretty much like everybody had the same plan. And the principals weren't involved in it, the teachers weren't involved in it. I know when I came, some of the principals didn't really know what their plan was. And again, looking at it at the district level, it was like everyone had the same plan. And that's not really how it's designed. It's designed to, you're not gonna build capacity if central office is building the plan.
Right.
When the teachers and the principals are the ones that have to implement the plan. So when we say we switched back, that's why we went back to getting the state support 17, it back in here. I guess they had stopped coming to Marion. So they offer support on all of these things. So they were heavily involved in coming to Marion and getting us back on track. But again, we want the principals to be building their plans with their staff because they know what those issues are. And that's why they're not all gonna look exactly the same because they might have some similar issues that they're addressing, but you know, they're
Right.
different too.
Right.
And I think you've seen some of that in the building presentations that they've done. So you'll see some of the effects of that work coming out in those presentations.
Would it be the DLT's responsibility then to make sure that best practices are being shared throughout the buildings at the elementary level?
Yeah, we are
Okay.
working through that, yes.
Gotcha, okay.
So,
Yeah, go ahead.
you go. I'll ask
No, go
after.
ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a couple of things from me. When you talked about purchasing this early warning system and that we have to link that to some kind of a funding source, usually what is the cost of that? And because don't we have something in place right now that involves, because I know when we were at TAF, they got some kind of alert and the ESPs would go or call or whatever. So what's in place right now? What would be the cost of this early warning system, and what kind of a funding source would we link that to?
So an example, that Elevate software is not just for attendance, that is just one of the uses that we can use it for. So we can set parameters for different buildings for different reasons, for central office for different reasons. But that one piece of that, what we have currently is PowerSchool. So, and I may say this wrong and you might know better than I do, but you have to go seek that data. So you get a daily attendance report for your building. So they can do that on a daily basis, and then they have students that they know are showing up on a regular basis. You can pull an attendance report for those students, but someone has to do that back work. So if you have 40 kids in your building that are chronically absent, you have to do the work to get that information to be able to contact those families. What this would do is just automatically, when they hit that 6% or whatever we're looking at, would automatically alert, send an email to the principal, send an email. Don't quote me on the cost, I'll have to go look at it, but I can't remember what the total cost
And then the attendance officers or the attendance people that we have, it's their job then to kind of run those reports, or how to?
We do have an attendance officer for the district that assists with running some of the reports. This will help that person be more efficient in what they're doing, because we can set up reminders and alerts to go automatically every other day. And it can be for specific students. So if we would like to say, these students all had attendance plans last school year, now we'd like to know if they missed more than 2 days in the first month of school. We could set that up, and that could go to the person responsible for that child's attendance plan, whether it's a guidance counselor or principal.
Because if attendance is one of our goals, and would you say 5,000 days or hours or whatever seems to be staggering to me. So anyways, I'm interested in how we follow through with that.
That program will also allow us to set up, for example, suspension days, if we'd like to flag a student if they get suspended more than 2 days. You know,
Okay.
because again, PowerSchool tracks this for us, and our teams do a great job of inputting that data, but ultimately we have to look for it. So this sends us the data, sends specific people, specific students. We have a lot of abilities with it.
And my last question is, I think sometimes the public may get confused with the word salads that because I got kind of lost. The DLT with the BLT and so on and so forth. How can we make some kind of a cheat sheet so that, because there are people who are interested in this process, and what can we do to help the public understand, you know, what each responsibility is and how ultimately it's about our kids. So what can we do about the word salad that, I don't know, they probably understood
We have
out
some
there.
ideas.
I didn't understand, you know, and I'm an educator, but what about the people, you know, the public who are listening, who, you know, like a church sermon, you know, kind of nodded off when you were, you know, so.
That's fair.
Okay.
So I think that's something that we're working on,
Let's
because
work
we
on
don't disagree with that.
All right.
Yeah.
And some of our new teachers would also benefit from it.
Okay,
So.
that's it for me.
I mean, we have, obviously, again, our numbers are not what anybody expects. Fair to say that, right? Do we have, I mean, the board has been talking at a number of meetings about maybe getting or facilitating help earlier, right? Is there anything the board can do at this point that you think that we need more resources, or the idea of a full day preschool has been floated around, or, because we got, what I'm looking at least in math, at the kindergarten level, going to first grade for next year, 45% of our students are already behind. And then the time we hit the fifth grade level, we're at 78% of our students are 1, 2, or 3 grades behind before they go to sixth grade. So it seems like either we're not teaching the right material, or our kids are just way behind early, and it just keeps compounding on them, because obviously education builds, right? Is that what we need to do or?
So I think what, our focus is to stay the course. We are in a good place in terms of decision-making right now, knowing what our data says, knowing what we're doing in terms of curriculum adoption and purchases. So we look at elementary math, and we know that next year will be full implementation of Bridges. And you've seen little bits of that throughout the year, but we're in a good place to push that forward to continue to see progress with our students. I know that it's buy different things or hire more people. It is stay the course with the good work that's happening right now, because we are making a difference and we are seeing a difference with our kids. And I can't speak, and I know I've only been here for 2 years, but I can't speak to what it looked like before. But we are in a much better place than we were 2 years ago, coming into for our academics, our social emotional, how we're approaching instruction for kids.
And obviously, some of the kids have to be here for us to
Right.
teach them. So we have a truancy problem, right? And then we have a number of in-school suspensions, as Ms. Della Flores pointed out. We're losing a lot of instructional days, and it talks about 20.7% of our middle school and high school were in in-school suspension. I think that's over the course of the year, right? Yeah. So are we working on if they're missing, I know Ms. Della Flora had talked about if they're missing days, there was some sort of plan we were working on getting them their work to make up. Are we making sure that happens?
So we
right now?
have ideas. We are in the
Okay.
planning stages, but we've had conversations about what that looks
Right.
like for students who are not in the classroom. So our primary goal is to keep them in the classroom when possible, but we know there are going to be situations. So what does that look like when students are not in the classroom? What are we doing to make sure that they continue to get instruction, academic instruction?
And we don't have a number, there's no way to track how many educational hours were missed for every other student that's not a part of that stat, right? For instance, if a kid does something in class, we don't have a stat that shows, well, 25 kids missed a half hour because the one kid caught an in-school suspension. We don't have a stat for that.
That
right?
would be
Okay.
difficult to track, yeah.
Okay. And then I guess my last one for anybody, like, we have the number of out-of-schools for the elementary. We're actually, they might get an out-of-school suspension, but we don't have an in-school suspension program. Is that correct?
We just don't have anyone to staff it right now for the in-school, so I think that was the idea of the peace rooms, was to try to just give them a space where they can calm themselves down and get back to class and not be out for the whole day. But the structure is a little bit different, because like I said, it's probably easier for an elementary kid to catch up if they're out of the classroom for an hour or two, because they're back with the same teacher. Whereas you look at a middle school or a high school student, and a lot of these kids who are getting suspended are already below grade level. So then even if you give them the work to make up, they don't know how to do the work.
Yeah.
So they're trying to do the work by themselves without a teacher. So that's the piece where we have to figure out, like, even if you give a kid the work to make up, but they need an adult with them to help them, they just will get further and further behind. And we have to break down the data and we can do that to see exactly which kids we're talking about. I mean, some kids have a lot of suspensions and they can, skew the data some ways, where sometimes other kids, I know at the middle school, they're looking at which students have 1 incident that are on this list and which students have 10 incidents that are on this list. And obviously those kids that are with more are the ones that they're really trying to figure out what needs to happen.
And,
Go
hold on
ahead.
one second.
Yep.
On that 4.3%, it says of 86 kids served an out-of-school suspension for elementary, okay? And you might not know this off the top, but if we had in-school suspension or a way to fund it, would those 86 have stayed in school?
They could
Or were
have.
they bad
my
enough
question,
that they
too,
had
yeah.
to like totally get out?
They
You know what
could
I mean?
have, we could have used it.
Some of them
Yeah.
anyway. Some
Yeah,
would have
some.
had to go, but a certain percentage of that group
Probably still
could
had to be
have.
out of school.
Okay.
Depending
Yeah,
on
but vice
the
versa,
infraction
probably
that
could have
occurred.
stayed
Yeah,
if we were
correct.
able to staff it.
Okay.
I will say a lot of our elementary principals and assistants tend to find themselves internally running.
In school,
They're in school, and they,
give them a break.
because they try to do the best they can to keep kids in school as much. And our secretaries are, they're in the office as well, and they do a nice job of doing the best they can.
Well, I mean, on one hand, you have 20.7% middle school and high school in-school suspensions, and 8.3 in out-of-school. I mean, we obviously still are facing a discipline problem. I mean, I commend the administrators for trying to institute discipline. It's obviously nobody's learning if the kids are running the school. So, I mean, on one hand, it's great we have high numbers. On the other hand, it's bad because we do have high numbers. I mean, but we have to do something. Okay.
And I just want to say again, I'm very interested in the root causes because it goes back to what we talked about at the district strategic planning session. We spent all night on it one time in terms of what's causing this. And I think there's two parts of the equation in terms of when we get the kids, where are they? But then also what could be preventing us from, again, getting over that hump. So we will identify those. I guess I need that cleared up. So we sent the plan to the state.
So
correct?
we've identified some of the root causes.
We have, okay,
Yes, we've
identified
already
our
done
own.
that as a team with our
Yep.
building principals, because they all did a needs assessment. And we took
Okay.
all of that information and compiled it into the district one. So we've
Okay.
already identified, and I can tell you, some of them are quality continued tier 1 instruction. So and that's over the last 3 years. So we know we've made progress in that area.
Okay.
And that needs to continue. I would say another one has been our students coming to school not ready, so our kindergartners. So that's just a couple examples of what those root causes are.
And the state's looking at our plan to tell us what then?
So they give feedback. There are 5 different rubrics that they use on everything from educator equity to curriculum so there are 5 areas that they look at. They use those rubrics. They grade our one plan. They send it back for revision on any areas that we need to add to. So it's an ongoing working process.
Just to make sure we're following the process.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yep.
Madam Superintendent, anything else?
No.
Okay. Item 4 on the agenda is the treasurer's report. The motion 4A is motion to approve the board minutes from May 6th, 7th, and May 20th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Weidling,
Yes.
Mr. Guyer,
Yes.
Ms. Swanger,
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff.
Yes. Item 4B, financial approvals. This is a motion to approve the following financial items: the May 2024 fund report, the May 2024 checks, the May 2024 financial report, then and now certification, and the fiscal year 24 amended appropriations. That's all the items, right?
Yep,
Okay,
lots of end of the year stuff.
okay. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second. Any discussion? There was, just so, I think there was a then and now certificate,
Yes,
meaning we had used something and it ran into another,
it was a invoice from several years ago that didn't get paid, and I was made aware of it recently, and it has to get paid. And because it wasn't encumbered before, that's why you have to approve
do you know
it.
what that was for?
It was for a contract for some web services, website services,
Okay. So this is paying something that should have been paid before, we're just
3
paying
years
it
ago,
now.
yeah,
And you're doing the paperwork and we're approving that?
yes.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Ms. Swanger,
Yes.
Mr. Guyer,
Yes.
Mr. Weidling,
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff.
Yes. Item 5, hearing of the public. The Board of Education recognizes the value to school governance of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. Public participation is a time set aside for the board to listen to public comments, but is not intended as a time for dialogue. The board offers public participation to members of the public in accordance with the procedures below. Everybody, I think, that filled out had a procedure list. The board applies these procedures to all speakers and does not discriminate based on the identity of the speaker, content of the speech, or viewpoint of the speaker. We have a number of people. I think first up, I have Ms. Peterson, Jackie Peterson.
Good evening to the Marion City Board members and those that are in attendance. And I realize that my time is limited, so I want to address those important points that I want to speak on. I started attending the school board meetings back when they were held at Grant Middle School. Several of us from the African American community would take turns going and just sitting and listening to the plans and concerns that were happening in the district. And they talked through how to get to a solution. There was unity, respect, and a huge focus on the students. We have what we call the Elders Councils, which was started some years ago, assisting or consisting of Black pastors and ministers representing the Black community. We developed a form soliciting the superintendents of Marion City Schools, seeking to seek and to meet them in a relaxed setting to hear their perspective on how the district was faring and share our perspective from what we were hearing from our community. We met with Superintendent Barber, Assistant Jen Lawson, Interim Superintendent Fuji, Superintendent Irusi, Massey, and Ms. Della Flor. I had the opportunity to be on 2 of the search committees when the district was in search of 2 superintendents and now high school principal. I think the choices that were made were excellent. I must say that I'm saddened to hear that Superintendent Della Flor is leaving our district. The excitement that she had when she came and when I first met her was refreshing. Me being a Black woman, seeing her step into the role was amazing to me. I started attending Marion City Schools in 1969, and I graduated from Harding in 1975. In all of those years, I only had 1 Black teacher, and that was Mr. Rodney Banks. Coming from Mississippi in the 8th grade and used to seeing Black teachers, and coming here was a shock to me. I got some good teachers when I came here, but I didn't see anybody that looked like me that was teaching. The stats have shown that when children see teachers that look like them, they tend to do better. My concern is not just for children of color, but for all children. However, again, the stats have shown that when a system is not faring well, those children of color may be doing worse. Ms. Della Flor has great goals for this district if she was only able to carry them out. I've listened to what she wanted to do. I listened to the TED Talk that she presented with nearly 4 million viewers and shares titled, Created Ways to Get Kids to Thrive in School. I want you to know, Superintendent Della Flor, I'm sorry that you're leaving. It's not that you are not qualified, because you're well qualified. I consider you as Black excellence. Keep doing what you do best. Be a positive influence to teachers, students, your family, and women like me. My prayer is that unity will come back to this board and that our children and our teachers be represented well and treated with respect. Thank you.
Nicole Willis.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak before you and the people in the community. I just wanted to read a letter that I wrote to the board, and the reason that I'm here, this is not my typical style, but I wanted to come because I didn't get a response from the board members, and the only response I got was to say, I encourage you to attend the board meeting, so that is why I'm here. My letter reads, Dear members of the Marion City School Board, I am a parent of a child who is a student in Marion City School District. I want to express my appreciation for the education my child has received throughout the time he has been enrolled in Marion City Schools. As a parent and a citizen, I support Marion City Schools wholeheartedly. I am writing you today with profound concern regarding a recent revelation in a case of an individual who has been arrested and indicted for the rape of a student enrolled in Marion City Schools, i.e., the president of the Marion City School Board is providing legal representation for this individual. I fully acknowledge the principles of justice and fair treatment and the right to legal representation, and that a person is not guilty until so proven. Still, I am compelled to express my concerns regarding the integrity of our school's leadership in this case where a student of Marion City Schools is alleged to be the victim of a child sexual assault and the school board president is the alleged perpetrator's legal representative. It is imperative that the Marion City School Board, as a member of the Ohio School Board Association, adheres to the highest standards of ethical conduct, ensuring that the primary focus is on the educational welfare and well-being of the students of our district. The Code of Ethics of the association sets forth the dictum that conflicts of interest or the appearance thereof must be avoided. The dual role of the board president as a leader of our city schools and legal representative of an individual charged with the rape of a student enrolled in the same city schools presents a clear conflict to me. For example, might there be a situation in which the president of the Marion City School Board is cross-examining a student of the Marion City Schools in the course of this legal representation? What message might that be sending to our students, parents like myself, and the broader community regarding our commitment to the safety and well-being of our children? I am writing this as a parent of a student that has a child enrolled in Marion City Schools because I feel like it is imperative that the citizens of Marion have the full trust in our leadership to act in the best interest of the children. We must uphold the values, integrity, empathy, and accountability within our educational community. Our children and our students of Marion City Schools deserve that and nothing less. And with that, I just have 2 questions, which I'm not even sure that can be answered. Is Mr. Ayers Ratliff still employed by the Marion City School District? And my other question is, was his contract renewed as a substitute teacher? And I don't, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Bolden.
This is Dr. Bolden. Good evening, Marion City Board members. Tonight I will be speaking about 2 topics that concern me regarding the direction of Marion City Schools: leadership and decision-making. As I reviewed the oath that each school board member takes upon entering office, the phrase, "You will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as members of the Board of Education," was intentionally and deliberately integrated into that oath. However, the leadership, the integrity, and the accountability that is innate with the role of being a board member is not evident to myself nor the community, particularly in the matter of a criminal case of which board president serves as counsel. Upon reviewing the Code of Ethics as published by the Ohio School Boards Association, there are a few ethical violations that I would like to bring to this board's attention. Number 1, remember that my first and greatest concern must be the educational welfare of all students attending the public schools. Number 2, recognize that as an individual board member, I have no authority to speak or act for the board. Number 3, delegate authority for the administration of the schools to the superintendent and staff. Number 4, render all decisions based on the available facts and my independent judgment rather than succumbing to the influence of individuals or special interest groups. Number 5, support the employment of staff members based on qualifications and not as a result of influence. Number 6, avoid conflicts of interest or the appearance thereof. Number 7, refrain from using my board position for benefit of myself, my family members, or business associates. And number 8, express my personal opinions, but once the board has acted, accept the will of the board. Today, I ask you all to take a stand and do what is right for this school district and this community. As elected officials, you should not hide in the shadows of this matter, as your silence equals complicity. A quote that is befitting of our board's current status on this matter is provided by none other than Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who states, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in moments of challenge and controversy." Since this board has taken the stance of being protectors of Christian tradition, allow me to invoke the words of Bishop Desmond Tutu, who states that if you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. This call to action will set the tone for our district as we trudge into the future, one of which is mired in uncertainty, particularly given the departure of Superintendent Olympia Della Flora, which brings me to my second point. Her departure marks a huge loss for our district. Her vision, leadership, compassion, and authenticity are but a few of the attributes that led me to seek Marion City Schools as my educational home. Equipped with the promise of our students, impressed by the well-maintained status of our facilities, and adorned by a committed staff, I quickly became enamored with the prospects and possibilities of what we could do in this beloved district. However, over the course of my 10 months in this district, I have personally witnessed the vitriol for Superintendent Della Flora's leadership, the disregard of her business acumen, and the disrespect towards her perpetrated by members of this board. Everyone here says that we need to have open and honest dialogue in order to move forward. Well, let me be honest and expose my vulnerability in speaking with my colleagues and state that Olympia's departure is the direct result of the deplorable tactics employed, the intentional mistruths circulated by staff and community members alike, and the egregious false narratives manufactured by a select handful of Marion City Schools representatives who have undermined Superintendent Della Flora's leadership and have sabotaged the education of our most prized commodities at every turn, and it is all due to selfish gain and financial profit for some. Though I am not a native of Marion, as an outsider, it is painfully obvious that the power structure of this district has been altered immensely as a result of Olympia's arrival, which has been imbued by her regal decorum and standard-setting professionalism. And if our beloved district is to ever emerge from the dark pits of which it is currently seeking, then the demons of division, bigotry, and self-aggrandizing behaviors must be purged from within. The good people of Marion deserve leadership that prioritizes our children, values their socioeconomic development, their social-emotional development, champions their academic growth, and diligently prepares our children for entry into adulthood, devoid of personal agendas or political rhetoric. In closing, the great orator and abolitionist Frederick Douglass is quoted as saying, "People may not get all that they pay for in this world, but they most certainly pay for all that they get. If our community does not mobilize itself now and begin to demand better from our so-called leaders, then our beloved schools will get a lot of things that we will be ill-equipped to address. Shame on us, Marion City Schools, for allowing a sharp, visionary leader such as Superintendent Della Florida to be driven out of our district. Thank you.
Kelly McKay.
I just want to say it's a pleasure to follow Dr. Bolden. He's a man of great integrity. I'm so happy that when I was board president, we hired him and we hired Olympia. So why am I here tonight? Well, I'm here tonight to request that Mr. Ratliff and Mr. Weibling resign as members of the Marion City School Board. I don't for 1 minute believe they will do so, as their arrogance would prevent them from doing that. But I wanted to explain the why I believe they are unfit to serve. Dr. Bolden went through many of the points of Board Policy 123, Code of Ethics, Code of Conduct. Some of the ones that he highlighted that I also highlighted, I won't go over, but I will go over a few. Respect the confidentiality of privileged information. Work with others to establish effective board policies. Most board presidents, just an FYI, do not write board policies. Improve their boardmanship by studying educational issues and by participating in in-service programs. Cooperate with other board members and administrators to establish a regular system and impartial evaluations of all staff. In addition, the board believes that each member should agree to work cooperatively and effectively with others and conform his or her behavior to the following code of conduct by collectively and individually agreeing to act as an advocate for the schools and for our damn kids. Keep the board's primary focus on the best interests of our students. Strive sincerely to build better relationships with one another and the superintendent. Become well-versed in parliamentary procedure. Refuse to become involved in micromanagement. Emphasize planning, policy-making, and public relations rather than becoming involved in the management of our schools. I'll go on to Policy 152. There are only 2 officers, president and vice president. President pro tem is not identified as an officer, so therefore cannot call a meeting where actions are taken. Excuse me. This person is not filling in for the president who could not attend. This person is only to conduct the organizational meeting to swear in the new board members. I bring this up because this is about the lease. Thank you. This is about the lease. So before the end of my term, which was December 31st, 2023, an emergency board meeting was called by Mr. Weibling. He had not the authority to do so because I was still board president. And so then they decided to rescind the lease or renegotiate it. So we'll talk about Robert's rules because they are a parliamentary authority according to public policy number 161. If a motion has been adopted or defeated during a meeting, and at least one member who voted on the winning side wants to have the vote reconsidered, such as a member can make the motion to reconsider. This motion can only be made by the member who voted on the winning side. There is only a limited period of time within which it can be made. In the usual case, this motion can be made only on the same day on which the vote sought to be reconsidered was taken. For example, suppose that after a meeting is over, it's too late to reconsider. If the board feels they made the wrong decision, then at the next meeting, you could make a motion to rescind. However, if this involves something that has already been purchased, you cannot rescind. And I would remind you that the lease at 100 Executive Drive was approved on 12/18/23 by the MCS School Board and on 12/21/23 by the Marion County Commissioners. In Robert's rules, there is nothing that calls for a renegotiation. More recently, this board has ignored the comments Mr. Ratliff made concerning a Grant Middle School student who's alleging she was raped by Mr. Ratliff's cousin, Ayers Ratliff. He's accused the prosecutor of politics, and his law firm accuses her of doing crazy stuff, and she's out of control. Mr. Ratliff, your first job as a board member is to do right by all of our students and keep them safe. Your language and that of your law firm suggests this is not a priority for you. I'm curious also as to why the MEA and OPSE leadership have shown zero regard for this student and her safety. I think the behavior that you have shown towards Ms. Della Flora is probably your most egregious. Your unwillingness to work with her is appalling and can only be described as misogynistic. You don't work with her. You tell her what to do. Let's build an auditorium. Let's create a whole new extracurricular department. Don't get community input for any of this. Why would you do that? Just have her do your bidding. And then if she doesn't, well, now she's being insubordinate and you can fire her. So it works pretty well either way for you guys. It was interesting during the strategic planning that ended this April, the people were adamant about one thing: all day, every day preschool. It wasn't about an auditorium. It wasn't about an extracurricular department. To the recently elected board members, I say this to you: it's time to think for yourselves. Mr. Ratliff and Mr. Weibling are setting a course from which this district will be hard-pressed to overcome financially, academically, and culturally. We are no longer a 1985 district. We are diverse, and yes, we are poor, but we could have done amazing things if these men would have just let Ms. Della Flora do her damn job. And they just wouldn't let her do that. So please have the decency to resign. And finally, I want to apologize to Olympia personally. I should have called them out months ago. But I know you will be great at Maple Heights, and I wish you everything.
Harriet Sims.
Good evening. I'm here to talk about diversity. We need more teachers of color, African American, Asians, Filipino, Native American. We need more diversity. I am a high school graduate of Harding. I think in the 6th grade we had one teacher, black teacher. She was a music teacher. She stayed here 1 year. For some reason, we cannot get African American or even anybody of color to stay here in Marion City Schools. I don't know why. We need them here. It's good for children to see someone that looks like them, to give them that guiding light. Also, during graduation, I saw everybody on stage, did not see the president of the school board, Mr. Ratliff. He was not there. And I was shocked. I felt he should have been there to give those kids encouragement, job well done, clap their hands and everything. He was not there. But we do need more diversity here in the city of Marion. We need more diversity as far as teachers, because it helps children when they see someone that looks like them. I graduated from Harding High School. My daughter graduated. All of my brothers, we all graduated from Harding High School in 1973 for me. So that's all I have to say.
Mr. Dunstan.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I don't know where to start. It's a hard subject to tackle. It's rough when an individual has had the allegations made against them that AIRS has, and it's rough when the school board president says it is my job to defend everybody who comes to me, including a 14-year-old boy of color who goes to this school and is accused of a crime. His rights are violated, and there wasn't nearly this much turnout to say we need to protect our children. When this school system, under the last board, watched that kid get steamrolled in this building. Mr. Ratliff was there to say that's not right. That's not going to happen. Mr. Ratliff was there when wrestlers and other students didn't have wrestling gear, shoes, clothes, food. He was there when the teachers had an end of the year celebration, personally paid for food for teachers. His family has been involved of making sure that Benjamin Harrison, that their teachers are always celebrated. Always. I understand that this is a dirty subject. It's ugly. It's hard to watch. But when we don't have all the facts, when we don't know everything, it is foolish to rush to judgment and ask people to step down for doing their jobs. It is foolish to take one side over the other until everything is laid on the table. I understand we want to support the victim, and I want to too. I want to do that however that looks. However that looks, we should support them. But saying you're doing your job and I don't like that you're doing your job and you should leave the school board because you don't care about our kids is a foolish statement. If you want to have a conversation with, I disagree with the way in which he does his duties as school board president, well, then that's a fair conversation to have. But if you want to frame this conversation as he does not care about this community and he does not care about these children, that is a foolish way to frame an argument to win anything in this room, in my opinion. So you guys are gonna, I'm assuming, adjourn into a closed session and you're gonna figure out what you're gonna do and you'll come back. But I know for a fact that Mr. Ratliff does care about these students. He does care about this community. He does want them to succeed. And I believe when everything is laid out, it will be a very different tone. And I look forward to those who have called for his resignation to come to the meeting and apologize for doing so. I will be here for that meeting as well. So, thank you.
Mr. Bailey.
Hi, just give you a little background. This is the first board meeting I've been to, and I've listened to what's going on today, and I've got a few ideas, a few things I would like to say about that. Number one, it seems like we're throwing a lot of stones at some of our leadership on the school board, And we all have to understand that the school board is charged with giving our children the best education possible. Through her own admission on multiple statements, I heard the superintendent say, as we were going over the percentage of increase, beginning of year, end of year, that we're not where we want to be, by her own admission. Now, whose fault that is or not, I may not know, but is the school board charged with getting the best education for our children as possible? And we all know the Marion schools are not a highly rated school in the state of Ohio. So change is needed. Change is required to get to that point. Nobody likes change. Nobody likes it. They're unhappy with it. But if we haven't seen the improvement we would like to see, then maybe we do need to change. Maybe bring in new leadership to help, you know, make the school better, get it a higher rated school than what it is. Secondly, in his participation as him doing his own job, do we cause, do we make those who deal with certain other people provide him with power with electric? Do they get penalized for Mr. Ayers' issue? Do the guards out at the prison get penalized because they're taking care of guards? Yeah, we don't like the situation. We may not be happy with it. And I've heard us say innocent until proven guilty, but I don't think we're really living by that statement. That's a hard statement to live by in these situations. And I think it is absolutely wrong to try to punish anybody for something that isn't complete, isn't done, that we don't know, and is not fair. It wouldn't be fair to you if it was happening to you. As well as I believe Mr. Ratliff is without question a person of integrity and does his job as he sees fit. And I absolutely agree with what he's doing. And I'm sitting here saying, hey, you gotta wait till the results come out. And even if they do come out in the worst case here, it does not mean Mr. Ratliff has done anything wrong. He is providing a service to a person that needs it. If one of your kids needed a service like this, you would be more than happy to have him on your side to prevent your children's case if it was needed. So absolutely believe in him, and I believe he's a person of integrity. So, you know, all I'm saying is, yeah, at this point, it looks to me like Marion Schools does need a change. We've got to get better than we are, and that's, I assume, what the school board's trying to do. And then the last thing I'll say about the presentation from Doctor is, I got two words, is flow chart for, you know, presenting what you guys do. Because I'm like everybody else, as you went through all the abbreviations and everything else, it was very difficult to follow. So a flow chart at several levels would help make that a lot more easier to understand. All right, thank you, that's all I got.
Mrs. Dana Booker.
Thank you for letting me have an opportunity to speak. I wasn't going to speak, but I do have a couple things that I'd like to say. I'm very big on reading, and when I got here, there were two staff members that were given statistics and how they plan on moving forward with the next year with their plan with the students. And one of the things that stuck out to me is doing research, working with the Peace and Freedom Committee. We are trying to develop a way where we can capture students from grades 1 to 3 and work with them on their improving their reading. And in the stats of our research, one of the things that stuck out to me was that kids in the 3rd grade that do not pass the 3rd grade, that percentage is what they determine on how many beds to put in a prison. And so for me, that information was a shock, but I'm like, what can we do to improve that? So with the stats that was given earlier, I would like to know, because information is powerful, and if we have the right information as a community, we can use it to our advantage to help our children. So I would like to know what the ethnicity breakdown is on the suspensions for the children that are particularly in grade school. Because to me, there needs to be an emphasis on that margin from 1st grade to 4th grade or 2nd grade to 3rd grade, whatever that margin is, whatever that issue is, if there is something that can be done with the statistics to improve that, And then the last thing that I want to say is that Olympia, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for supporting our community. Thank you for supporting Marion. Thank you for supporting the staff here. And I wish you the best. Thank you.
Item 6 is agenda confirmation, additions and deletions to the agenda. I think those go to her to keep on the minute meetings of who spoke.
So is that what you're calling for right now?
Yes, 6A is additions and deletions to the agenda.
So I would like, if we could, to pull Olympia out separately so that I have some things as a board member that I would like to say. I can't find. In my additions, I would like to add the lease, number 1. Number 2, strategic planning. Where's that paper? The lease, strategic planning, the community's concerns that were talked about here. Oh crap, I cannot find. There was one more. The lease, strategic planning, pull Olympia out. Here it is. The lease, board protocol. And I'll explain that when we get to it. So the lease, addition, board protocol, the community concerns, and strategic plan. I would like to add those to the agenda, please. And pull Olympia out separately when we talk about contracts, et cetera.
So you have 5 items you want to add?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes.
Okay. Is it okay to deal with those separately?
Yes. Because they can be dealt with separately.
When we pull Olympia, or if we pull, do you want to do that when we do the consent agenda?
Yes.
It's part of that?
Because we did pull, who else did we pull? Did we pull
Just
someone else?
removed. If you're page 11, there's already
Yeah,
one
there's-
that's removed, but that's
We already talked
completely
about that
removed,
one.
I think. Yeah.
It's not that I'm,
Under 9A is what you're talking about. We do have somebody that's not on the consent agenda.
9A?
Consent agenda, yes. Is that what you're talking about?
So I think as far as Olympia being pulled out, I think any board member wishing to pull someone out,
Right.
it gets pulled out. So
Yep.
that one is not anything anybody's got to vote on.
I don't want to pull her. I just want to, I
Vote it.
understand, that I just want to, as an additional talking point, I want her separated from that particular group because I would like to say something as well during this board meeting to add to our posterity, because I think you have one more meeting, right, Olympia? So, yes, that's what I would like to do. I see 9A. I see what you're talking about.
Okay, so she's pulled out. Next one's the lease.
Yeah, are we talking about now? Yes, the
Well, I mean,
lease
I'm talking about, you
to
need
add
make a
to the
motion.
agenda. Yes.
What about the lease?
Are we on the agenda now? Are we adding it to the agenda?
We're on the part where you add it, if you're gonna make a motion.
Right.
The motion is the lease.
The motion, why don't we do them all? 1, 2, 3, 4. The strategic plan, board protocol, community concerns. Let's deal with those all together as adding them to our agenda.
So you're adding the lease. What about it?
So, the lease,
Are you adding just, I guess I'm.
what do you mean, what about it?
Well, I mean, you need to make a motion before to add it. If you're saying, hey, I want just time to talk about the lease, that's your motion.
Okay,
But you're
I
not
want
presenting a
to-
motion, you're just saying what lease, strategic planning. You have to have a proper motion before the board.
To add things to the agenda,
Correct.
I would like to talk about the lease.
A specific time, a motion to talk about the lease.
And I would like to talk about the other items as well. I have.
Can we just do them separately?
Yes.
Because you might have some board members that might be no on ones and yeses on the others. So if you're trying to talk about them,
See, I'm trying to understand what you want me to say. I'm making a motion that I want to add items to the agenda, and you're asking, do I want to add them separately, right? And then you're saying, what about the lease? I want the
Correct.
public to know what's going on with the lease.
okay, so you
that's
want
what-
time specifically about the lease, time to discuss the lease,
I want to add it to our agenda,
okay?
and we can add it as a discussion item.
Okay. Ms. Dyer is making a motion to add discussion about the lease to the agenda. Does she have a second?
I'll second that.
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mr. Weibling?
Yes.
Excuse me. Mr. Guyer?
Yes.
Ms. Swanger?
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
The other,
I have down strategic planning.
right.
What
We
is
are.
what is your motion?
My motion is to talk about the strategic plan so that we can get a definitive date so that we can present that to the board, and preferably before Olympia leaves so that we can try to get that in place before we get a new superintendent or an interim or whatever direction we decide to do. So,
I'll second that.
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dyer?
yes.
Mr. Weibling?
Yes.
Ms. Swanger?
Yes.
Mr. Guyer?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Just pass all three of those.
All three.
So when we get to that point. My next board protocol, I think I've been doing some research. How many more?
I was gonna wait till you
Okay.
were done, but that's okay.
Do I have enough?
No, you've got enough, we're good.
Okay. I've been doing some research, and we have had quite a bit of discourse about the board. Ms. McKay came up and she talked about some stuff, and Mr. Bailey also talked about some things as far as the board and is concerned. But I believe that this board is somewhat unconventional in how we conduct business. So I've contacted several and doing some research and trying to get on some real sure footing so that as we go into the next, whomever our next superintendent is, I think it's vital. I think Mr. Bolden even alluded to it, that we do some things that would allow superintendents to feel safe, comfortable, and secure. I don't think it's fair to blame failures on superintendents because there were certain things that occurred before this superintendent was even in place. So I did research on the OSBA site, what's called a board protocol statement, which I would like for us as a board to kind of look at so that we are, I'll pass this whole thing around, so that we are on the same page as far as our goals and objectives. Lost in all of this, we have neglected to talk about, like, our kids. I know we have a student achievement part that we do on the board, but I think we're so wrapped up in personalities and vitriol and all that, that we're forgetting about why we're here, and that's the kids. I know too, Mr. Ratliff, it wasn't lost on me, your sarcasm, when I asked you to call special meetings so that we can discuss this, because I didn't think that this would be a great forum for us to actually have this discussion. So your sarcasm wasn't lost on me when you said, you talked about my education and my training. Yeah, because I'm always trying to train to be a good board member. And that is that protocol sheet just says that we all need to do that. And if you look at board policy, that's what it says. The board shall encourage each member to understand the functions of the board, to acquire knowledge of matter related to the operation of the schools, to learn procedures, and to make sure that each new board member attend orientations and training. So I did note your sarcasm.
Well, that's good. Could you tell us
But
if you have a
anyways,
motion,
go.
ma'am?
That's the motion.
You have a motion
There it is.
of,
The board protocol that's
board
coming around.
protocol. You want to talk about board protocol. That's her
There
motion.
it
Does
is.
she have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Weibling.
You're welcome.
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Ms. Longer?
Yes.
Mr. Guyer?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes. Next item, Ms. Dyer.
B?
Yep, you have another one.
I did them all.
You have community concerns talked
Oh,
about
community
here.
concerns, okay, yeah. I'm sure Mrs. Willis did mention that she did write an email to the board, and I know on occasions, sometimes we do address the concerns of the public at board meetings. I know Mrs. McKay called for resignations. I know some people talked about integrity and so forth. So I think at this time, we need to address those. I think we got probably 6 email, and I have had several calls, not only from people in Marion, but people outside of this community. So I think we need to address those concerns and try to, again, I try to call a special meeting, but it's strange to me too how we could get a response from our statutory attorney on what we need to do about that like that, but I've been trying to contact him since April about the lease, but I digress. So I think we need to address the concerns of the community about this ongoing controversy that seems to be swarming around our community. That is my motion. And thank you to all the brave people who sent email and expect us to actually do something about it. Thank you.
She have a second.
I'll second that.
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Ms. Swanger?
Yes.
Mr. Guyer?
Yes.
Mr. Weibling?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes. Is that it, Ms. Dyer?
That's it for me.
Anybody else have anything?
Are we going to add those at the end as we normally do, or usually pick a number
We can go into them right now.
for information? Yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
I vote that we add them as business right now.
Number what? Where are we? 7?
6C?
With those,
6C?
with those additions, 6B, all those additions, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dyer,
Yes.
Ms. Swanger,
Yes.
Mr. Guyer,
Yes.
Mr. Weibling,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff.
Yes. We will take them one by one. I think the first is the lease. Ms. Dyer, you have the floor.
Thank you. First of all, kudos to our staff who have moved very efficiently. We, Building and Grounds, met today. Mr. Grau, thank you for all that you are, instrumental. You did take a vacation in there, though, I think, so. But so thank you for that move. So the staff has moved. And that's not what my problem with the lease is. The problem, and I think Ms. McKay stated it's just, to me, there are several things that we should have done. I don't think we planned as well as we could have when this information was brought to the board. Right now, we are at $56,000 for the move, $56,883 is our expense when we were told it was going to cost nothing. My major concern in bringing this up is we did, and I've contacted our statutory attorney several times. He did meet with us one time with in executive session. My concern is litigation that may be toward us, the Marion City Schools, as a result of us breaking the lease. So adding this to the agenda, I think we're just at least putting it out there that, and I sent an email to everyone June 17th, and I asked them, again, if we could sit down and talk about it, and maybe if everybody were to email Mr. Russell to get him to get a meeting with the commissioners so that we could see where we are in this. Again, I'm just stating for the record that I'm concerned that there might be litigation toward the Marion City Schools, which this $56,000, which, by the way, we paid $13,000 a month for rent at 100 Executive Drive. So now we're at 4 times that amount in this move. So I just wanted to bring it and put it on the agenda so that we can, A, determine if our district is going to have any litigation, and if so, how much is it? And B, so that we can understand and get the information out to the public that this move did cost $56,883 currently. And Jake, is that the final? No, so this is $56,883 and the cost is still rising? That's current today. That's current today. And do you have any estimate as to how much more past the zero that we thought it was going to cost, that it's going to cost the district to make this move? I'm going to guess $5,000 more, so that maybe $60,000 for this move, and we don't know about litigation until we get from our attorney, Mark Russell, about what the commissioners are going to do. All right, so that's the lease. That's what I wanted to put it in the record.
So Mrs. Dyer, can I just say, if we go back historically, our central office was at the Church Street building behind the Jersey, as most people know, and a decision was made by the school board to move that from there to Grant Middle School, where we had a move fee and we had a lot of remodeling that had to be done in a school to make room for offices. We then chose to leave that space to go to Executive Drive, where once again, we had to pay moving fees to do that. As a teacher, I can guarantee you that when we moved into this building, I schlepped everything myself. And the teachers who were moving moved all of the stuff ourselves. And at Grant Middle School, I talked to a teacher the other day who said, I've been in a different classroom every year that I've taught here. And every year, that teacher has moved her own stuff from room to room. So I don't understand why we're fighting over moving fees when we've done it historically several times.
I'm not.
And as a teacher, I had to do that myself.
Yeah, and I've moved too, Kathy. I taught forever and I moved too. My point is not about the fees. My point is, it was stated that it was gonna cost us nothing.
By
that we were
who?
saving, by you.
I didn't
You
say
said-
it was
yes,
gonna,
you
the move
did.
was gonna cost us nothing.
You did say the
They
move-
gave us an estimate of
Okay.
$16,000. I cannot
Alright.
help it, the DSC's number is off.
Okay.
Everybody
So,
knew if you're
but
using
that's
moving
not-
companies, it's gonna cost us money. Historically, if we can go historically, since this building has been built, our administration offices is housed in several different areas throughout time.
True, true.
Okay?
6 different.
I was not on the board when we can't figure out where to put DSC in our own buildings.
Right.
They then move out to lease the county building for $165,000 plus a year.
Okay.
A year.
But you're missing.
So
my-
we are now in a budget crisis that in 5 years we're in the red, so we're gonna have to cut something,
Right.
okay?
We're
And
in
I
a
understand
crisis.
you don't like the move. You
I love
voted
the
for
move.
it.
I love the move.
Well, then why are
What-
we arguing about it? Because you
not
brought it up
arguing.
to say that you don't like it. And let it be known that you, Ms. Dyer, as a board member, has contacted the opposing side
Yes.
to tell them, I don't want the move, I'm not for the move, I want to mediate. Basically,
do
so
want
you've
to.
told the other side that I want to pay you a bunch of money.
That's not
and
what I
went
told them.
outside of this board to do so.
That's not what
You contacted
that's not-
opposing counsel.
That's not
You
what I
showed
told
up
them.
at the county
Boss.
commissioners' meetings
Boss.
and told them publicly
was
in a
there.
public meeting. You trashed
was there.
me and Mr. Weibling, who called the meeting at that meeting.
I was there.
So when we talk about board protocol and how that shouldn't happen, and the board's supposed to be united, and we're gonna speak together, and we're gonna unify, that is surely not what you did when you went to the county commissioners meeting and
That's
threw
not-
me and Mr. Weibling under the bus. I got the recording, the radio station is here, they can play it on what you
Right.
talked
Let
about
them
us.
play it. I did talk about the fact that we were moving. What my concern was what the commissioners were going to do. I attended those meetings to see if we were going to be involved in litigation. They would not talk to me because I am supposedly a part of a group that is represented by a statutory attorney. I went to get information. I went to see if we were on the agenda to see, because you guys weren't telling us, and we went months without you guys saying anything.
We
And it's
didn't
not
have that
about.
And we said
hang
that
on.
at the meeting last time. We didn't have that information. I have
Well,
not received
and then,
any
like,
information
why?
that you didn't get. And that's because the ongoing litigation in terms of the.
Is
the
there litigation?
communication- Well, the communication between the parties, that hasn't been determined yet.
But, and Kathy, it's not about the move, because, yeah, we have moved several times. It was about the manner in which it was done. You guys came with no plans. Where was it ever in your plan that there was $56,000 for the move? Where was your plan written and presented to our superintendent?
Well, you don't want us to micromanage anything. So having plans, what are you talking about? We said we want to be out of that building in January. I hope that we can come up with a plan to go from point A to point B in 6
And
months.
where was our treasurer and our superintendent in this planning?
Well, we actually approached the superintendent about where would like them to go. She turned it down and made her own plan. So
But that was after you stated at a meeting that we better not have a coat hanger at the DSC after
that was
June
relayed
30th.
by our legal counsel
Okay,
for me to tell everybody. And everybody knew since January. I shouldn't have to tell you in May, you gotta be out by June, because everybody knew in January when this board acted.
To me, it's just been no transparency. You know, the former board did look for places. So the plan that was stipulated was not written, you know. You did not consult. When you're talking about crunching money and all
no,
that.
I understand
But
for
anyways,
the first
the
2
discussion
years.
is over.
Listen, for
I'm
the first
done.
2 years, I understand there's been some backdoor meetings with you, Ms. McKay, and Mr. McKinnis running this district. And I understand how you don't like it now because you're not being listened to in backdoor meetings and plans are happening behind closed doors. I understand all that.
Why are you planning behind closed doors?
I don't know why you guys are doing it. I've never understood it. I've always tried to be here. I had to listen for 54 minutes, Ms. McKay, former board president, lie on the radio. That's all she did for 54 minutes. When she said there was a plan for Dr. Bolton who spoke. Me and him didn't know about no plan. For sure we didn't know about a plan. And if Mr. Bolton didn't accept his principal's job, there was a plan B. For the first time ever, we found out about a plan and a plan B. Why?
What
because
plan?
you guys have constantly done that.
What backdoor meetings?
Exactly.
And like you don't
We would love to hear about them.
Like you don't meet at your law offices with MEA and
I
all.
don't ever have backdoor meetings on hiring staff in this building.
But you do have backdoor meetings at your law
On
offices.
backdoor meetings on what?
Well, I
Bringing
don't know.
RF
I'm not
counseling
there.
in?
I'm not there. I don't know what you're talking about at your law offices.
Okay.
Can I go back to the
we-
lease?
I was going to say, for me, the bottom line on the lease is this, bottom line. We always talk about when are we going to get back to talking about the students? When are we going to get back to talking about our kids? Obviously, you know that I've taught for 38 years. That is my number one priority. And my number one priority is getting back to the kids. So if we don't have to pay $13,000 plus per month for rent, and that money goes back in our coffers, by golly, you know what? We can spend more money to get somebody in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, to help with our reading programs.
Kathy.
So that our kids' test scores will be better.
Kathy,
To me,
come on.
that money is best spent
Kathy.
on our children.
We just spent $25,000 on a grant. We just spent $500,000 for extracurricular department. We're spending money, like you're talking about saving money. We just spent, what'd I just say, $57,000 for, and Mr. Ratliff he wanted us to go on a retreat for $27,000. So when you're talking
I
about
didn't come
all
up
this
with
stuff.
that number. The DSC came up with that number. You
what-
keep attributing those numbers to me. I didn't come up with those numbers.
But it was your idea to go on a retreat.
Yeah, I would
out
like
of the
this
community.
I
Back to the
would like
lease. Do
this
we have
going.
any updates on the lease?
Here, can I?
Do we have
Thank
any
you,
updates
Evan.
on the lease?
Thank you.
Because that's what we're supposed to be talking about.
All right.
I want to know, is there litigation about the lease? It is 56 some odd $1,000 currently. 24 of that is coming with the movers. That's open. It's out there. It's for anybody that can get online and find it. Do we have anything about litigation on the lease?
We don't know at this
Concerning
point.
that. In terms of
Mr. Russell
All right,
tried to.
I said let's move on.
last-
I'm done.
Can I
The last
respond?
thing that I know, Mr. Geyer, is there was supposed to be a meeting with Mr. Weibling, Mr. Russell, and the county canceled.
Correct. So there
And
is
that's
no
a-
new
So
information.
there's no one?
Okay.
So we
There's
don't know if we're
zero
going to be
information.
sued for breaking the lease.
Nope.
That's-
Okay,
yeah,
I'm cool. Let's move on.
And, well,
I'm
I'd
good.
like to
Let's move
discuss,
on.
just to
Wyman,
give
yep.
me 45 seconds,
Are
hopefully.
you, have whatever?
It was, and this is what I brought up to the previous board, that in terms of the timing of the lease, and I've stated this before, it was back in December, January, that we had to notify the county commissioners 180 days out if we were going to renew or not renew. 180 days, literally to the day, was January 2nd. The new board's term started on January 1st. That was my recommendation for us to wait on that to see if the new board, how they would vote on it. That was turned down. In terms of being president pro tem, that the last meeting of 2023, then it would have been, when the vote takes place and it was decided that I should be the president pro tem. At that point, and it would happen to any president, when they step down and the authority is going to be relinquished. If there had been, and thank God there wasn't, if there had been any other type of catastrophic event, okay, that needed to take place, President McKay had already stepped down and authority had been given. Let's say there's another COVID outbreak or whatever the case may have been. She would not have been the one making those decisions. By the definition of President pro tem, in the place of or in the absence of, that's where the authority temporarily, President pro tem, would have fallen to me. So I still do not feel that I was out of line by requesting that meeting. I still stand by that decision. If it's going to save us over $400,000 over the next 4 years and we have to pay a moving fee as we have in the past, then I would make the same decision all over again. I know some people don't like that, but that's where I stand on it. And as far as additional information, other than a canceled meeting, so no, there is no new information from when we all met with our legal counsel at the special meeting. Thank you for the opportunity to say that.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Guyer. That was a great question. We don't have any additional meeting and scheduled.
Currently, yes. So that's, yeah.
Next one, strategic planning.
Can we just, I passed the draft,
That's this part. Okay, so yeah, that went around. Is that,
So
that
I'm
was
just-
No.
I'm just presenting
I
it,
don't know that it's-
and.
with our pillars
you
on it
get it?
and everything else, correct?
Yep.
That's the
So
one
I-
with the red font on the
So can
front
we,
page.
can we
Yeah.
study that?
Thank you.
Because the strategic plan,
I don't know if this.
talked about early childhood education. I heard people clapping back there about that. Obviously, from the data that's been presented, the overall flavor of that was that we do need some type of early childhood intervention. Kudos to the staff. We have 90 people, 93 and 4-year-olds, right, Jen, that are at the summer boot camp. So great job as far as that's concerned. That's a step. But it's my understanding that we won't be as lucky next year, so we need to do some things. So my motion is that can we get the strategic plan, you guys look at it and kind of, so we can get it presented at the next meeting.
And even with the follow-up, and as I asked before, with the, let me check my notes.
Everybody get
unless
a
somebody
copy?
else can remember. The root causes. I think that ties into, when we get the
I think we talked
needs
about
assess-
that.
Yeah, exactly. So that, to me, lends itself perfectly to what was discussed earlier. Okay, we all saw the numbers. When the kids first show up, there's in some certain circumstances, certain grades particular, there's tremendous growth that is shown, and then for some reason, what is that root cause? I agree with you. I think that root cause, and Sam even said it herself, that whatever we find with that should be tied in with this too. So again, it's the momentum is in that direction. But
So are
yeah.
you saying don't,
No, I'm not.
don't vote on this, or what are
What
you saying?
vote are you recommending, I guess?
No, I'm just saying, I'm just
Yeah,
giving this to us so that we
formally discuss
can,
this with the public at the next board meeting.
so that we can try to adopt something before Olympia leaves, so that we can have something in place.
Yeah, and
when
that would
we
just
look
come
for
with a
new
formal
leadership.
request to have it placed on the agenda, and,
Right.
we were all here for that,
So
so I
that's
don't.
my motion.
Does OSBA need to be here as part of this
This is from
presentation?
them.
Okay,
This is
because
from
I was waiting for them to
Yeah,
send me a
this
final.
is the first, yeah.
Yeah, I asked for it because I was wondering what was taking so long. And Olympia, what was their request? They needed what in order to finalize?
I don't remember the day. I put it in an update to ask if any of the board members wanted to be participating and putting it together, and I didn't hear back from anyone. So I have just been going back and forth with Cheryl the past 2 weeks. I haven't been able to set up a meeting, and then board member Dyer reached out to her in the meantime. So I don't know if you guys missed it in my update or what.
Well, it's part
Must
of
have
what we
missed
paid them for to help us with this too, so
Yeah.
no, I'm all, like,
It's
just,
the-
yeah.
OSBA
Compile it all
did
and,
their part.
yeah, show us what we did.
So they need what? What do they need? Pictures or something? Did we send that? They said they needed some pictures.
I think it's right here from Vision
glossies,
Horn down to
or whatever.
If you guys can tell me who's the point person on the board that's
To
gonna
this.
take this, that's gonna lead this strategic work, then I can work with that person, but no one responded when I asked who wanted to do the strategic planning, so,
I will take the lead. If you need somebody
Okay.
to take the lead, I will take the lead.
thank you.
And then probably put this on the agenda for next
If we can put
official,
this,
the
yes.
next regular meeting.
Yes, I would
Yeah,
like,
after we've
I
had a
asked
chance
last
to
time,
see
so
the
where is this
finalized-
and where,
yeah.
why have we not done anything? So
Yeah.
I will absolutely take the lead. We can get this on the agenda for July.
I think they need pictures and our logo, high resolution
I've got all
logo.
that.
All right,
I've got old pictures. I don't know that I have new pictures.
all right.
I have lots of pictures. For those of you who are laughing back there, I have lots of pictures.
What's next?
board protocol.
Just read it, same thing, let's put it on the agenda, make some additions and deletions. I think it's important that if you don't think we're unified or whatever, those kind of things, erase it. I mean, because I think there are a whole bunch. That's just a template from OSBA. What can we do to make life easier for the board? It makes my stomach churn. You know, when I leave here and stuff, and I just want to do what's best for kids. So just read it. That's from OSBA. That's not Tara Dyer. Check the ones you like. And then there is a final sheet that has the date, and if we want to make comments like we commit to doing an annual Board of Education self-assessment. So if you don't like that, not annually, maybe you should every quarter or something like that. So make notes on this, and I know this, we've talked about number 3, we will work to follow the chain of command. We've had communication about that a lot. So just make notes, and maybe we'll just have it for a discussion item at the next meeting.
Last is the community concerns talked about here.
Yeah, community concerns. Oftentimes when we have a community that speak in front of the board, we learned at maybe a couple meetings ago that sometimes we do a knee-jerk reaction because we did some changing to graduation that didn't sit well with the community. So I wanted to make sure that today we don't do knee-jerk kind of decisions, because I know both of you guys were asked to resign, and I know you've seen the email and stuff like that. So, and I think I'm understanding that a lot of the stuff that is involving Mr. Ratliff and his firm is this is a democracy, and I know there's some grand jury stuff coming up, but I think you know, in order to address the concerns of the public that they did have in the email, I don't know if it's fair to say, you know, do you guys want to resign, or do you want to, you know, I think we need to sit down, get the facts, like Mr. Dunstan said, there's some things that may come out, but as far as your role as president, do you think it would be conflicting to represent a person that has done harm to, or allegedly done harm?
I do not.
Okay.
I don't think I have any conflicts. I've checked with our statutory attorney. He doesn't think I have any. That does not mean there might be some in the future. Conflicts happen in this, in particular this one. No one's even been indicted. So when I get emails that they're just public, the public rights, I guess they don't fully understand the legal procedure, but I get emails he's indicted. He is not indicted, my client. I can't say a lot about it because I'm getting chastised by presenting a defense by the judge already. So there's not much I can say. I know he is innocent. I do have a lot more evidence and things than I think the public knows. So I understand their potential worry. However, I've done my due diligence as an attorney would, following the canons of ethics, and I do not think I have any conflict. For instance, voting on a strategic planning that might come before the board next time. Where is my conflict because I represent somebody legally in a criminal charge? And this has not happened ever in my now 2.5 years, and I've represented a lot of people you know, in many different capacities, whether it's children's services or divorce or custody or criminal actions. I know Bob Whitney just passed away. He was 88 years old. He was president for a long time of the Lexington School District. He did the highest cases that you could do. I think he did 80-some death penalty cases and so forth. He was never asked to resign. I understand that I got a letter that was pretty much copy and pasted, the whole board did, pretty much copy and pasted between 5 people, one of which spoke. You know, I understand that people are going to take shots at me, take shots at my family. I had to listen to the radio station, 54 Minutes of Lies. I can't stop what people think. I can't stop people lying in the community. I cannot stop any of that. All I can do is be reactionary and do my job as I do all the time.
So
I
what
am
if-
the one, just getting back to Ms. Willis's concerns, I was the one that came here that night and removed him from the agenda so he was not approved by this board. So the board has known since the day it happened, and I will continue to update, but there hasn't been really anything to update. But, you know, and we're bringing up stuff, you know, that was in a public hearing. I think Ms. McKay had brought that up in her speech about the things I'm saying in public hearings about defending my client. She did not bring up, that was discussed in the public hearing, that this could be caused, any injuries could be caused by toilet paper wiping. So we have toilet paper wiping, rape. That's what the evidence is showing. So, you know, you make your determination, but that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a crime scene that hasn't been tested at all, and that was all in the record. So if we're going to talk about the record, let's talk about it plainly, clearly. Anybody can go get it and request the court for it. They can hear all of that stuff if they want to go get it. You just ask the municipal court for that preliminary, they'll make you a copy, and you can hear everything that was brought up. All the questions, all the examination, there was 3 witnesses. So you can hear all of that.
So my question is, like, what if there's ever an occasion where you might have to question our staff in a certain setting, our staff that took statements or whatever, wherever the school was, and
I mean, in that particular, first of all,
would that create a conflict?
Maybe, and we'd have to go from there. But that's so far removed from today and where we're at. You know, that's
I'm
way
just
down
saying,
the line.
any interaction
Correct.
with our staff that work for us, you know. in
And
the
I
Marion
don't,
City
I don't
Schools.
have what, you know, so everybody understands the way it works in a criminal setting. I don't have all the evidence the state of Ohio has at this point in time. I'm not entitled to it till he's actually officially indicted, which he hasn't been. At that point in time, I would get that evidence. Also, you know, this would have been, I anticipate, if she would have gave statements or someone would have given statements, we're just basically a middleman of a statement. You know, there's not like we caused it or did anything other than I talked to this person, this is what they said, this is who we called. That's what I would anticipate anything to be, but I don't know that.
If that situation did come up, and I don't think I'd have to be the one to say it because I think President Ratliff would recuse himself. We've all recused ourselves at one point. This is obviously a much more serious situation than simply being related to somebody who we're hiring as a substitute teacher, whatever the case might be. But I would fully expect that he would recuse himself from any decision that would connect itself to a person who was involved in the court case in any manner. And if he didn't, that is when it would, you know, raise a red flag. And that's where I would, well, and maybe I would ask him to do, but I don't think I would need to.
Okay.
It was just recently, there was a former client of yours that you abstained from a decision. Yeah, it's happened on more than one occasion. That's where, and again, I've thought about this for quite some time, and that's our responsibility to do that. We've all done it.
I'm just saying, Scott, that, you know, the public, people, you know, have talked to me, and other than the 5 email, and I'm just trying to be responsive to the people. If it were me, she was on the other foot, you guys would not allow me, right? I mean, or any other person, you know, so I'm just trying to, I'm just trying to be responsive to the people who put us here and what they are asking me.
Well, I think by
I'm
having
asking
us
as well.
discuss this, you've done that tonight. I think
Yeah.
you have done that. So
All right,
it's
that's
a-
it. That's it for me.
And I will say, Tara, I mean, first of all, I seconded your motion because if you would not have put this on the agenda, I would have. And if we're looking at your protocol statement that you have here, one of them says, we will endeavor not to purposely blindside or surprise anyone. I had a direct conversation with Mr. Ratliff, and And it was not an easy conversation. Okay, 2 conversations. Neither one of them were easy. And in terms of saying, as a social studies teacher, knowing that you are innocent until you are proven guilty. And I said, I believe this is a conflict of interest. And this is why I believe it is a conflict of interest. And we had those conversations very candidly. And those of you who know, I mean, even as a union president, I mean, I understand the defense because as a union representative, I was defending people a lot of times who were teachers. And I may not have thought that they were totally innocent either.
Yeah.
But everybody deserves a defense. And by golly, if I ever get charged with a crime, I certainly hope that I have the right to have a defense.
Right.
And have somebody fighting for me. So and I
for-
know, listen,
but Kathy-
the point is this. I directly had this conversation, the very tough conversation, and said I thought it was a conflict of interest. At which point, Mr. Ratliff went and asked and sought legal counsel of his own to find out if it was. And the legal counsel that he came back with says that no, it is not. So again, we just found out about this at our last meeting. So this is the first time that we've actually had a chance to address it. So it's not like anybody's trying to brush it under. This is the first time we've really had a meeting to be able to discuss it.
But, and you know, I tried to have a special meeting. You
I'm
know.
fine with the public hearing. I don't
Okay.
need a special meeting.
And that's when you gave me the, you
yeah.
know, you should know these things kind of stuff. I don't like it, Kathy. You know, I want us to be able to, like, if he had attorney or whatever, and the attorney said this, and that, you know, we could have determined, you know, we could have come right out and said, look, you know, this is where the chips are, you know, and stuff. And then the public would, you know, have said what they needed to say, and then we could say, well, Mr. Ratliff went this route, and he talked to you. I mean, I don't get that.
He talked to
kind of
me
thing.
because I went directly to him.
I did too.
So I'm just,
And
I'm
you
just saying,
guys. I emailed everybody, but, you know, so that's it for me.
Anyone else? I see nothing under old business. Item 7. Item 8 is the new business contracts and agreements. 8A is the Marion Technical College MOU, Career Advising Counseling. Madam Superintendent.
So the, put on my camera. This is an MOU that we do yearly. This is for the career advising counselors that are here at Harding. This will be grant funded. The college and career readiness advisors help our students with ACT practice, registering, college applications. So again, this is something that we do annually, and it will be covered by the expanding opportunities for each child grant.
Is that new, the grant? Do you know?
I'm not sure how it's been funded in the past.
Yeah, because,
It was this past
Yeah.
year as well.
okay. And does that grant allow, because when this first came up, they couldn't answer our questions. I think this went 4-1 with me. I think Weibling me and Weibling was kind of discussing this in open session. I think eventually he voted for it 4-1, but the question was, obviously these career people, not that we don't want career counselors and so forth, but we were providing at the time, we were providing the funding for the position, and they were working 3 months over at Marion Tech, right? But, and maybe this grant allows for that, because they could not tell us if the grant allowed them to work at Marion Tech for 3 months. So I didn't feel we should be taking taxpayer dollars paying for a position for 12 months. They work here not only 9 and full-time at MTC for 3, okay? So if the grant allows for that, if someone can, I mean, I'm all for the career advising position. So I mean, that was the holdup last time.
So don't you remember when Marcia Pitts explained this whole thing? She came to a board meeting and she
I do not remember her
explained
talking
all
about
this.
the
Yeah.
EOEC grant.
And she tried to explain, although.
Do you know? Could you tell us? Yes.
What's the specific question?
Thank you for coming.
Yep. Thank you. The
What is
grant
it? Oh,
is
go ahead.
this early
This
child.
Expanding
Yep.
Opportunities Grant, and
Correct.
it has certain criteria of
Okay.
what we have to allocate those funds for.
Correct.
So the funds that we are paying for, the college and career readiness, they actually work making connections with work-based learning in the summer for our kids. So that's part of what that summer year-long contract goes towards.
Okay, because I understand that they're here 9 months and at MTC for 3, right? And the question was,
Come on up.
Oh, she's there. I was about to say, I know I've seen them at summer
Yeah,
school,
more
so I know they're
information is
here.
better.
So that's helpful. Can you
I
tell
know
me
they're
a
at
little bit
Harding.
about what-
So I'm actually at Harding 12 months out of the year. So this summer, I've been working with students, building workshops, getting students into the school. We're doing resume building, we're doing college application workshops, essay writing with the students at Harding. So while we are getting paid through a grant through MTC for these 3 months, we are stationed at Harding. I'm not
Working
at
with
MTC.
Harding
Yes,
kids.
I'm always
Yes,
working
okay.
with Harding kids the whole time.
Gotcha.
What Marsha Pitts explained to us about this.
Thank you.
Thanks.
thanks, Shannon.
A motion to approve.
I'll second.
Oh, go ahead.
Whoop, third.
Do we have more discussion?
No, you can call the roll, please.
Ms. Swanger,
Yes.
Mr. Weibling,
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer,
Yes.
Mr. Guyer,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes. Next item, 8B, the East Therapy Virtual SLP Services for St. Mary's. Madam Superintendent?
This contract is for virtual speech language pathology. As you know, as a public school district, we are required for purchasing services for those students that attend non-public schools. So this would be to cover 36 students at St. Mary's who are receiving speech and language services for the upcoming school year.
Thank you.
Which we have done repeatedly and, yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes.
Ms. Swanger.
Yes.
Mr. Guyer,
Yes.
Mr. Weibling,
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer,
Yes.
Item 8C is the River Education Services Incorporated LEAP program. Madam Superintendent?
This contract is something I know that we've used in the past, but there's a LEAP program in Mansfield that we use sometimes for our special education students who require to be outplaced. So this is a contract for an outplacement.
Do you know how many?
This
Do we
is
have
one right now.
Just one right now? It can call for others, but right now we just have one, right?
Yes, and I believe this is the one that has a per diem rate of 160 per student.
Okay. I'll make the motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes.
Mr. Weibling,
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer,
Yes.
Ms. Swanger,
Yes.
Mr. Guyer,
Yes. Item 8D is Pro Team Solutions, Inc., PSI.
Okay,
Madam Superintendent.
this is also another contract for special education services. This will support an aid for one of our special education students.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Ms. Swanger.
Yes.
Mr. Weibling.
Yes.
Mr. Guyer,
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes. Item 8E, EMS Link LLC Services. Madam Superintendent.
This agreement is for eSchool View, and this is the software that we use for both our website and for our Marion City Schools app. So this is just a renewal of those services so that we can continue that work. And I think we outlined some of it is for website management and some is for our app management and to keep that license for the app.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Ms. Swanger.
Yes.
Mr. Weibling,
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer,
Yes.
Mr. Guyer,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
Yes. Item 9, new business. 9A is a non-teaching supplemental. Madam Superintendent recommends the approval of following non-teaching supplemental of a Kimberly Weatherhead, varsity cheerleader advisor.
Motion to approve?
Second?
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Weidling,
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer,
Yes.
Mr. Guyer,
Yes.
Ms. Swanger,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff,
I'd abstain. Ms. Dyer, if you would like to, this portion, talk where we pulled out Ms. Della Flora.
Okay. Do we don't need an executive session?
I think we're going to have one at least at the end to talk about employment.
Okay, so I just wanted to thank Olympia. I mean, I saw a whole bunch of people who got emotional. Your relationship and the relationship that you have built in this community are valuable. I almost had to rethink when they called me and asked me about your recommendation. I said, she's awful, she's terrible, don't hire her, because I did not want you to leave. But I do want people to also realize that your hire here was historic. You and Dr. Bolden, you are the first African-American superintendent and woman that we had. So your footprints are indelible in the Marion community, and I want you to know that, okay? In 2019, we had a board resolution that everyone on the board went through, and they said we would honor diversity, we would definitely support our kids who were diverse in any way. I mean, that resolution in 2019 seems to be a distant memory to a lot of people. We had an equity audit that we paid $50,000 for that recommended some things, some changes in the district. I see some of those changes now. I talked to Johnny Jackson, and we had some teachers who were trained, who are training by Dr. Crum. That's because of your leadership. The history, I think Harriet Sims asked, what is it about Marion that is so unkind to people of color? Why do they end up leaving? And I wrote a list of about 15 African Americans, Dean Rucker, DeVell Winters, Olympia Della Flora. I just talked to Greg Draper, who's a minister in this town. He says he's not coming back to Marion City Schools. Our Growing Our Own program that was heralded by Kathleen Clemens, that it's gone, you know, so the work still needs to be done. So I just want you to know that I appreciated your time here. I learned a lot from you, and our loss is Maple Heights' gain. So God bless you. You know, touch ye not my anointed. You know, we always talk about those type things, and I know you're going to be successful, and I'm not going to lose your number. So God bless you, and may God continue to order your steps, because you're going to do amazing things wherever you go. So don't forget about us here in Marion, okay?
Thanks.
So that's it for me.
Do we want, obviously we pulled her, do we want to make
I can,
the motion
yeah, I
now,
can
or
make the
just-
motion to, do I have to make that motion to accept her resignation? I make that motion. Where's Percy? He's
She have
not
a
here today?
second?
We're gonna
I'll
miss
second.
Percy too.
I will second.
I think Mr. Weidman beat you to it.
Oh,
Is
sorry, I
there a
didn't hear
third?
him. I didn't hear him.
Yeah, yeah. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dyer,
Yes.
Mr. Weidling,
Yes.
Ms. Swanger,
Yes, and I also wish you the best.
Thank you.
Mr. Guyer,
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff.
Yes. I think we're to the consent agenda, right?
Yes.
I would like to take, I would like to go into executive session really quick on the consent, the remaining consent items, as to item 1, which would be the employment section.
You making a motion?
I'm making a motion to go into executive session.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Ms. Swanger?
Yes.
Mr. Guyer?
Yes.
9 o'clock.
Are we going to conduct any business after executive session?
Yeah, we have to conduct all that.
So you need to
consent.
tell them, that we will conduct.
We can skip 13, well, unless we're going to do something like, never mind. I'll
We
wait.
will have some business afterwards, which would be the rest of the consent agenda and the policies. You guys coming out of executive session at 9:27? Okay. We are to item 11. Is there any amendments to the consent agenda? Okay, item 12 is the consent calendar, which would be 12A, B, C, D, E, F, G,
Should go all the way to J.
yes, all the way to J. A through J on the consent calendar. I make a motion to approve.
Second?
Any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Swanger?
Yes.
Mr. Guyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mr. Weibling?
Yes.
Item 13, no items were removed, so we can skip item 13. No items were removed from the consent agenda. Item 14, the board announcements. These are all the future meetings. Our next meeting is July 15th currently. Anybody got anything to add on that? Okay, item 15, committee reports. Anybody have a committee report they want to talk about?
Just update buildings and grounds. We did meet this afternoon. A few things we did discuss, with just the final things that Jake and his team need to do to get out of 100 Executive Drive. They have a few items that still need to go to the old Colonial Acres building and Grant Middle School. And Jake was very complimentary of the custodial staff this summer. I know they're moving along with a lot of the projects they had, and they're well ahead of schedule. The major ones being the flooring issues at each building. So just a lot of things going on. He did give us an update on the backstop for the baseball facility that should be here next week. Get that also updated, and then also going to do the path leading up to the field. So thank you. We did discuss the current cost for the move. Again, that's just over $56,000. $24,000 of that is for the moving itself. So. And he mentioned earlier it's going to be, maybe another $5,000 on top of that. So, just got a lot of other projects they're completing. The big asphalt project here should be wrapping up once we're able to get that base down. So, don't think I missed anything. Oh yeah, the tennis courts. He did provide us with a report on what that coating looks like for the tennis court. He is going to actually consult the company again, maybe do a core sample on exactly what's causing the root issue of that surface over there. So, anything else, Ms. Dyer? Good. Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, item 16, information and discussion items. We have none. Item 17, policy approvals. The superintendent recommends the final reading and approval of the following board policies, which is policy 2623, 3120.04, 3140, 4124, 4140, 5310, 8600.04, 8640, 8660. Madam Superintendent, these have all been vetted by legal, and the recommendations are what you sent to us, right?
Correct.
Yep. Any discussion on these? Make a motion, we approve as they were fixed by legal and all their corrections.
Second that?
Any further discussion? Can you call the roll?
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mr. Weibling,
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer,
Yes.
Ms. Swanger,
Yes.
Mr. Guyer.
Yes.
Mr. President,
yeah.
before we move on, since we're talking about policy, I wondered if Olympia had shared that information with Mr. Weidling about the cell phone. Did you share that with him?
Everybody got the free
Did you
policies.
get that about the,
But I was gonna follow up
yeah?
probably
with,
and just say, I mean, now there's multiples out there. I should have brought a Yonder pouch. We did get the Yonder
Oh,
pouches
okay.
in
Gotcha.
last week, and so they have started using those here at the summer school, so that they're just getting used to locking them and unlocking. So if you guys want to see one, we have them for you to see.
Can you bring it to the next meeting, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
and then
Just out of curiosity, how's that going so far?
Well, here's the thing, they didn't get the Yonder pouches on time when summer school started, but they still set the expectation that there's no cell phones out, so the teachers got together and just decided like what they were gonna do. Like if you have your phone out once, they're gonna give you a kind of warning, put it away, but then if you have it out a second time, then it goes to the next level. So they're just testing them out to see, but again, it goes back to kind of setting the expectation. So, and it's summer school, so it's a little different.
Yeah.
Like,
Okay.
we need them to get their credits and focus, but I've personally just been in the math area, and I haven't seen any kids out with their phones. Summer school.
They're not just using them as a calculator?
No, they're using their Chromebooks.
Cell phone usage on that? So I'm talking about that one email that said the school, he needed to add something about the school bus and after school.
Transportation?
We have, the Neola, I shared with them the one you had, and they just said we had to make sure, look at their policy and make sure we address buses, after school, before school, extracurricular, in whatever policy we do.
Okay.
Can you forward that to him
I think I've already got it.
from
I think she
Yeah, we've all
she's
got
saying
it.
she's filed
Yeah.
So we
for it.
probably need to just get a draft together, maybe for July, because again, I think you want to have something in place.
Absolutely.
I mean, we have something in place, but if you're gonna make any major changes, you want to do that before school starts. So that would still give you time, because you have an August 5th board meeting, and then you still have August, another later one.
Correct. Item 18, I think we're going to go into executive session again regarding employment again, and there will be no further action taken after. So obviously, if people want to stick around and see us come out of executive session and adjourn, they are welcome to do that, but there'll be no further action taken after that. We appreciate everybody's patience in coming. So I make a motion to go into executive session.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mr. Weibling?
Yes.
Ms. Swanger?
Yes.
Mr. Guyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
You have the time.